Hello and welcome to this episode of the Roundball Australia podcast. It's me, Jacob, hosting again. Lockie, I'm sure, will be back soon. We've heard from him, so he is still alive. It's just a matter of time before he's back, I'm sure. But I'm joined again. It's the dangerous duo. It's myself and Poletti, and we've had insane games over the last weekend. Pretty much every game had some kind of crazy storyline going on, and it's just culminated in what we saw tonight, Monday night of recording, in the Big Blue. It's been just some tremendous football, some crazy results, crazy refereeing and VAR calls again, which I'm sure will be another big discussion this week, Poletti, but it's great to have you back on.
I always love being here with you, Jacob, and to everyone tuning in, whether you're a long-time listener or whether you're a first-time listener, if you think we usually ramble on and go on dangerous tangents, watch this, because we've got every tangent possible to move into after this weekend's action.
Well, we'll start off with the Big Blue, of course. It was the marquee fixture heading into the weekend, and I don't think it disappointed. Maybe from a Sydney FC perspective it did, but I think from a spectacle perspective it was tremendous. Really good travelling support. The home support turned up as well, which was great to see. And then on the pitch, it was just pure chaos, which is the kind of stuff that we've come to associate with Big Blues over the years, Poletti. We've seen it in grand finals, in final series, just during the regular season as well. Just some crazy games, memorable moments, very, very well taken goals. Not much different here, but I think really what has underpinned a lot of the discussion around this particular game has been VAR again. And for victory's sake, it feels like things are just going against them at every possible turn. It didn't end up mattering in this one, of course, a 4-0 victory for the victory over Sydney FC, but 2 goals disallowed for Melbourne Victory because of VAR. 2 Jason Davidson goals from corners, might I add, which is quite funny. But just 2 more frustrating decisions going against the victory, and you can kind of empathise, I suppose, a little bit with their fan base in how many more times is this going to happen to them?
Yeah, I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row, total of 3 decisions. Look, 2 of the 3, absolutely the right decisions. I don't think there's any issues with that. Everyone's still going to have their view on, last week's original rivalry decision. We're not going to revisit that. We've already all said our pieces on that. But look, I think that first one is...
It's so tight. It's
so tight, and I guess... look, if Arsene Wenger had his way, that's a goal, right?
Yeah.
I think that's... Look, I don't know, because I don't think we have the right camera angles to definitively tell us whether it was offside or not. I'm guessing that the VAR, has access to technology that we just don't have, that sort of allows them to pinpoint specifically, which is how they create the lines, and kind of like creating like some sort of 3D map where everyone's imprint is put in, sort of like similar to what you'd see with like that semi-automated VAR that we all saw from the World Cup, which had the bald Steph Catley, as the demonstrating in the graphic. Look, I think, I'm gonna default to the refs on this one, to the VAR on this one, just because I have to imagine they have access either to an angle that we don't and that the broadcast doesn't, or that they've got the technology that tells us, or that tells them that the lines have been leveled up right, and that we just simply don't have the camera angle to, because depth of perception, right? You view things on an angle that puts things out of line. So that's literally my only guess. It still sucks, right? And I think if you're 100%. Melbourne Victory, as you said, you're going to feel incredibly hard done by here. It should have been 5-0. If that goal had stood, maybe it's 6-0 because they get on the momentum early, and they literally did not let Sydney FC breathe from minute 1. And, could have been more, should have been more, maybe. I'll leave that up to the listeners and the viewers to decide. But I mean, that's still a very, very strong performance from Melbourne Victory, and
immensely.
I know they've had some great performances of late, but it's hard to believe that this is the same Melbourne victory coached by Arthur Dillers that 2 months ago we were all asking questions about his job, right?
For his head. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's crazy how quickly things can change, and I do agree that it was a very strong performance from the victory. Kind of backing up, I thought they had a very good performance in the original rivalry last week as well, and obviously, could feel hard done by in the result from that one. So it's good to see them continuing with these performances, but I think it was a complete and utter failure from Sydney as well. In their perspective, they're supposed to be right at the top of the league this season. Everyone's been just heaping praise on them about how good they look, how fluid and dynamic they are in attack, but I think that they were really exposed in this one by the victory. The midfield was completely ineffectual. The two fullbacks were having absolute shockers. Ryan Grant in particular was not having a great time of it out there, and it just was letting victory run free. And we saw those two Claris Mario Santos goals, both really well taken, but he was just having his way with the defenders all game long, and he was an absolute handful for them. So I think that we're seeing some real development from the victory, like you said, building on a lot of their disappointing early season results and kind of going, right, okay, well, we need to learn from these things and we need to make these changes and we need to play players differently. I think Juan Mata obviously has been a tremendous signing for them, and getting him involved in attacking phases of play has helped out massively. He's now leading the league with 7 assists. He got 3, I believe, in this one. So an absolutely massive day for him. 2 goals for Claris Mario Santos, like I said. Keegan Jelasic got on the score sheet. Lachlan Jackson was the other goal scorer as well. It was a free-for-all. And I suppose for victory, this is now, a few performances in a row where you're starting to feel like, hang on, maybe we've got a bit of magic back. Okay, one's a win, one's a loss. It might be a bit early to be making crazy suggestions, but with how tight the league is, and we've seen a number of people comment about that just in the last 6 fixtures that we've had, how tight the league is, these kind of results are massive, especially when you're getting points against teams that are right at the top of the league, like Sydney FC. Ignoring how disappointing it is from their perspective, for the victory, this is now a real opportunity to go, we can beat anybody in this league. We can beat anybody who consider themselves one of the best teams in the league. And that confidence can now flow onto the rest of our performances when we come up against opposition that are in and around that mid-pack that we're fighting with.
100% it can. And I think, they're literally only sitting 1 point outside of the top 6 now. They're tied. They're tied on points with Melbourne City. Literally, they're only 5 points behind Auckland. That's 2 wins. Auckland haven't looked entirely impressive either, and I'm sure we'll get onto this later, but it seems like the only side that actually wants to win games that's near the top of the table at the moment is the Newcastle Jets.
Crazy.
It's just like Auckland are dropping points. Sydney are dropping points. Canberra United and A-League women are dropping points. Until last weekend, Melbourne City and the A-League women were dropping points as well. Like, no one wants to win that's at the top of the table and create some space. Like, it's in both leagues. It's absolutely insane stuff. You mentioned the idea of this being a terrible performance from Sydney FC, and it was. And I want to point to 3 key absences here that I think might help explain it. Reece Ewley out through suspension. Obviously, he's been doing quite well this season for Sydney FC. Ben Garuccio out with a hamstring injury. So that's probably 3 to 4 weeks they're going to be without Garuccio, maybe, depending on the severity of the hamstring injury. Sydney just put it in a tweet, so it wasn't, any
I don't
more
think they've
detail,
confirmed any length or anything. No.
Any more detail than that. And the other one is someone who they're getting back next week in Joe Lolly, and my God, do they need that sugar hit coming back, because literally, I think without having Sydney FC's record and everything in front of me and their performances, like, their drop-off basically started when Lolly got injured, right?
Yeah.
So, they were able to rack up points before he got injured, and then he comes back, gets injured again. I mean, if he's supposed to be back for the derby, that's an enticing prospect for Sydney FC, because they need every single bit of the attack they can get, because they've got none. They
well, I mean,
literally
we were
had none
talking-
in this game.
We were talking early season, right, about how is this a resurgence of Joe Lolly? Is he back to being the best player in the league? And it looked, for all money's worth, that he was. You know, he was scoring goals, he was creating a lot of chances, he was being that real threat off the wing that we'd seen from him throughout his Sydney FC career. And then, yeah, those injuries have just really thrown a spanner in the works. And for Sydney, when you're losing such an integral part of your team as Joe Lolly is, that's huge. I do want to mention, though, on the VAR discussion, because I forgot to bring this up, Sydney FC, obviously, on the receiving end of a disallowed goal as well, from a corner where strangest thing I think I've seen in football, Piero Quispe plays a corner to himself, completely unintentionally, I might add. He tries to play it to a teammate, I can't remember who exactly it was, man marked by a Victory player, it just kind of goes through everybody's legs. I'm assuming he thinks somebody's gotten a touch to it or something, or it's played through. He runs onto it, puts a good ball in, you know, goes in. Everyone's thinking, oh, Sydney are back in this now. It's 2-1. There's a door open for them. But no, and it was quite funny to see in the group chat, actually, because it's very quiet. And then all of a sudden, Will just pops up with, did he just pass that to himself? Am I going crazy? And then it's like a couple of minutes later, and it's like, oh, thank God I'm not crazy. Okay, they caught it. I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me to have seen that go unawares, because, I mean, initially it did just look like it kind of maybe somebody had gotten a touch to it. But yeah, it's just absolutely insane, I suppose, that, you know, there are, I think was there another disallowed goal in this game as well that I'm forgetting? And there may have been as many disallowed goals in this game as there were actual goals scored, which, I mean, we talk all the time about PK. But you know, this could have been an 8-goal game, Poletti.
I mean, look, that is probably the first time that I have ever heard of VAR wiping out a goal from a corner because a player's kicked it to himself. I don't think that's happened, because I don't think anyone is stupid enough to do that. Like, you got to believe that Quispe thought that it had taken a touch on the way through, or else he doesn't touch that ball. Like, or does he hope that, actually, maybe they haven't noticed? Like,
yeah, maybe.
VAR's gone down?
He just goes, well, they'll check it. I'm not 100% certain. I'm just going to keep playing on. VAR will check that, you know. It's just worth just putting the ball in.
You can't blame the player for, you know, thinking like that. Yeah, just, I mean, fun game, an entertaining game. You know, if you're a neutral, absolutely. If you're a Victory fan, you're probably a little bit frustrated. If you're a Sydney fan, you're definitely frustrated. But when we say this is why we love the A-Leagues, games like this are 100%. Why we love the A-Leagues.
I mean, I'm not sure there would have been many people coming in confident that Victory would have a 4-goal win over Sydney in this one. I could understand people saying, yeah, no, Victory are going to perform well and they might get a win over Sydney in this one, you know, especially with Sydney's recent form and things like that. But a 4-goal win, it just goes to show, yeah, this is very evenly matched this season. And for a while, it looked like maybe there was that top 2 split coming away, right, with Auckland and Sydney kind of making some distance, but they're being dragged in now, like you said, with both of them dropping points basically every week for the last couple of weeks now. It's making things really, really exciting. And, you know, it kind of plays into, I'm going to change the order up from what I did have written down to a team that you mentioned before, the Newcastle Jets now, who are flying super high. They had a 4-1 result over the Phoenix. Some incredible goals in that one. I mean, just the Jets, sorry. When they score goals, they are just amazing to watch. It was that Lachlan Bayless one after all of about 15 seconds or something, I think it was, puts the ball into the far corner with just a beautiful effort. I mean, this team are so exciting to watch, Poletti. I mean, Milligan has done a tremendous job. He's kind of battled with it, a lot of inconsistency throughout the season, which you get with a younger team. But when they're on, they're one of the most fun teams to watch in this league. And, I think it's a real credit to Mark Milligan, the coaching staff and the players for playing this brand of football, being unafraid to be themselves, play this high intensity attacking football, and also to just back themselves, right? I mean, how many players in the league are going to take the shot that Lachlan Bayless did in the first minute of a game, right? Probably very few. It's going to be your young players, and most of them aren't going to be starting. They're going to come on later in the game, right? So it's just this kind of, I hate to say it, aura that they have, where they're just like, we back ourselves, right? We know we're good. We're going to take a shot from outside the box in the first minute because we're going to score it. And it's that kind of just swagger and just bravado that is so entertaining to watch when they're on. For the, unfortunately for the Knicks, it just happened to be when they came up against them, but it was a tremendous performance from the Jets. And like you said, they now seem like really the only team towards the top of the table that actually wants to win games of football.
Yeah, and if you look at it, again, it seems, like not even 2 months ago that, again, we were talking about Milligan. They've conceded the most goals in the competition, but they've scored the most goals in the competition. Can we, can they get some sort of consistency here? Are they sort of able to, get things going? And it almost feels like they've come out of nowhere to climb up into second place, because they have. They've won 5 of their last 6, and the only game they lost was a 9-goal shootout against MacArthur. They've literally just turned it on since Christmas and are just flying up the table. I think part of it's got to go to this hoodoo or whatever it is they've got over New Zealand opposition. Like, this is how the Newcastle Jets win the grand final, is they play Auckland or they play Wellington. If they play anyone else, they're losing it. But if they play the Kiwi, either of the Kiwi teams in the grand final, I'm putting my house on Newcastle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's an interesting proposition. They play Victory, and given Victory's history with VAR against Newcastle in grand finals and history with VAR this season,
the
Newcastle Jets get the rub of the green this time.
Don't you put... okay, fine. Give them the rub of the green.
This season, Poletti.
Just don't put a grand final VAR disaster class into the universe. We don't need that to be the story on the final day of the season. Don't put that into the universe. Take that juju back. Take it back.
Take it back. But I suppose it's interesting from the Jets' perspective now of, is this another flash in the pan for them, right? We spoke about coming into the season how, okay, it's great that they won the Australia Cup, right? But we've seen historically that winning the Australia Cup doesn't mean that going into the season you're actually going to be as good as you looked in that preseason campaign, because a lot of teams are still going to be figuring things out and they're going to get better as the season goes along, where you can argue you've reached your peak already before the season's begun. But for the Jets, they kind of did exactly that. They came into the season, they had that just kind of tedious loss against the Mariners in the F3 derby to kick things off, and then just kind of flip-flop from winning a game to losing a game, winning a game, losing a game. They are now, 4 games in a row with wins. 2 of those being multi-goal victories. I think this might be more than a flash in a pan. I'm genuinely... I think the Jets... It's a long season, there's still lots of games to play, but they are looking, of the rest of the league, they are looking the most threatening to actually win something this season, to win the grand final, to win the league. They're just able to have these performances where they wipe the floor with the opposition. They're super confident in themselves, like I said before. It's this last month or so for them has been tremendous. They've played really good football, scored great goals, defended extremely well, which was kind of one of their biggest problems, was inconsistencies in defence. They fixed up some of the issues that Lockie in particular has had problems with this season, with turning the ball over into the areas and things like that. I don't know. I think that this run of 4 games that they're on now, with 4 wins in a row, this is huge for them. This is not just, okay, we're playing good football. This is, we are the best team in the league and we're going to play like it.
Yes, but they started the season off well. You got to remember pre-season. You can criticize pre-season as being too long or whatever, but the reality is that they won the Australia Cup, right? They ran through the competition, started the trophy, and kind of hit that lull to start the A-League season, as you said, a little bit up, a little bit down. Were very inconsistent. Now they're on the up again. I think they've got one more lull in them. I think they've got one more downswing in them. My question is, when is that going to happen?
When
if
does it hit?
happen, do they get through the next 6 or 7 weeks and continue on the upswing, and then hit the downturn just before finals, and then suddenly they're coming in with no momentum? They've lost 4 of their last 5 coming into finals. Does that have an impact on how they play, or do they get through 2 more weeks riding high? They go top of the table, a few bad losses, or 2 or 3 bad losses, and then they sort of steady out and then turn it on again come finals time. I just think there's still one more downturn there, because I think the law of averages suggests that there's going to be a downturn
and
there.
I think with a young team as well, you're going to hit that again. It's going to happen again. Things are, maybe you have a poor performance here or there, and it kind of affects team morale. But just in terms of the football they're playing, it's difficult to look past them as the real title contenders this season, which heading into this season, I think, a few people would have said, they'll make finals, but to be right up there and to be arguably playing better football at this point in time than Auckland and Sydney, I'm not sure there have been many people out there outside of the Jets organisation that would have been saying that. So it's a real testament to how they've turned things around. And it's kind of the opposite story for the Phoenix, right? They were looking okay for a while there. What was it, 4 unbeaten in their last 5 coming into this one? Felt like, bit of stability coming back. They've got a few good wins, some hard fought draws and things like that, but you're going to get those every now and again, and sure, a poor performance against the Victory, write it off, you get a few of those every season. But this was another really poor performance from them, in the same vein as that one against the Victory. And I think it's kind of the continual occurrence of these over the course of a season for the Phoenix that's really hurting, right? Because it kills any momentum that they do build, because that just around the corner in a couple of games is going to be another loss like this, where it feels like you have to reset and change things again. And Chiefy, obviously, he's been very outspoken this season about how hard they've been working and how much they feel they deserve to be getting results. But the truth of the matter is, Poletti, that they're not getting these results, and that it keeps happening, that they're losing in these kind of games where they just don't look like they're in it for most of the game, and that's really, really hurting their chances to kind of turn around from the poor season last season and make finals again.
Yeah, and I think Chiefy's identified as such. He did say post-game that we need to start knuckling down and really getting focused for the next couple of weeks. We're going to do anything this season. They've got a run of fixtures at home. I think it's 3 of the next 4 at home. Yeah, or 4 of the next 5.
4 in the next 5 even.
4 in the next 5. There's just one slight problem. They've got to face the 2 Melbourne teams, the 2 Sydney teams, and Auckland.
Yeah.
Not exactly easy beats, any of them.
The thing, Poletti, is there's no easy fixtures this season. That's the problem.
I know. So great, you've got 4 in your next 5 at home, but I mean, it's not going to be easy for Chiefy to turn this around. The season almost feels like it's going to come down to their 2 games against the Melbourne teams. If they win those, great, they're right back in it like everyone else is in that in that 20 to 25 point range. If they lose them, they slip further down the table. They give up points to the 2 of the teams directly above them in Victory and City, and all of a sudden, you get into that 7 to 8 point range outside of the top 6, and
it's tough.
You're running out of time to turn it around. But I mean, look, it's it's tough. I mean, but this is sort of what we've all thought Wellington were this year, a good side on paper that just struggles to put it together on the field for whatever reason. Coming off the back of a good win against Sydney, and they had the rest day, then they had the travel day. So I think Chiefy said they only got trained once or something, but also it's like, can you really use that as an excuse? You just come off a good performance against Sydney FC.
Yeah.
Do the Yellow Fever really have this much power that as soon as the vast majority of them go back to New Zealand from their tour of duty, they took the magic dust with them that allowed Wellington to play like a competent football team? I love Chiefy. I love the way he analyzes the game. I love the way he looks at the game. I love the way he sets the game up. I like the way Wellington play for the most part outside of the high line. But you can't even call it an uncharacteristic performance at this point, because it's just been characteristic of the side this season. Is they're going to have good performances and they're going to have bad performances. I believe there was an Italian coach that said something like that once.
Spot on. In terms of other big fixtures, obviously the result between MacArthur and City was just insane. And MacArthur are big beneficiaries as well of the result that happened in the Big Blue. I think they catapult up to third. Are they just behind the Jets, who sit in second now, I believe? So, that's an absolutely huge result for them. And beating City 6-2, Poletti. And not just beating them 6-2. It was a bit like the Jets and a bit like the victory in that it was just dominance. If City got 2 goals, pretty well taken for the most part. Medin Mehmeti back on the score sheet, and was it Reece Hewley was the other one as well?
No, it was Marcus Yunus.
Marcus Yunus, sorry.
Reece Hewley is currently suspended for Sydney
FC. Yes. I get those two mixed up all the time. It's a similarity in the last name. But yes, 2 really well taken goals.
Okay. Look, so I was obviously at Campbelltown watching this game, just on that. I always forget there's a second Bonnetig.
Yes.
I always forget Liam Bonnetig exists. I was like, wait, what do you mean in Bonnetig here? Like, what? And then I was like, oh, yes, that's right. Of course, Liam Bonnetig. So I understand your confusion. Don't worry.
Yeah. But no, 2 really well taken goals for City, which on any other day would be great talking points for them. But the real talking point here is that MacArthur, I think, have shown what we've been talking about all season long in terms of their potential, what they can be when everyone's firing. Bratton and Caceres both getting on the score sheet and it ending up 6-2 is not a coincidence. I think that is pretty evidentiary that when they're having a good game, MacArthur are going to have a good game. Harry Sawyer getting on the score sheet again, and he got an assist as well, and he came off the bench to do it. Like Mitch Duke getting involved as well. It was such a comprehensive performance from MacArthur. All of their pieces were contributing. Curto didn't have the best game, kind of a mistake from him on the Mehmeti goal that let that one in, but in general across the park it was about as perfect a performance as MacArthur would have wanted.
Absolutely. Mile Stojovski said as much in the post game. He mentioned that his second game in charge was an away trip to play Melbourne City, and they got beaten 6-2. So he said it was very nice to
flip the script. Yeah,
to flip the script. To get that one back. This was domination from minute one for MacArthur. As you said, everything was clicking. This is some of the best football MacArthur have played. From start to finish for 90 minutes. They want to do that every week. It's not always going to result in 6 goals, but if you were to create a diagram of this is how we want to play football, you would pull out everything you did for that 90 minutes and go, right, this is how we want to play football, because more often than not we're going to win playing like this. And like I said, some of the best football I've ever seen MacArthur play, and I've seen a lot of MacArthur football.
Probably more than most people, to be honest. Yeah.
Yes. Absolute domination start to finish, as I said. I think despite all of that, I think the biggest talking point from the game, for me at least, was left right up until basically the final minute of the game, and that's Harry Sawyer.
Yeah.
He's had some cracking goal celebrations this season, but why did he... I want to know why he felt the need to pull the stripper moves out on the corner flag, because I had a friend over had a friend come to the game, so I was downstairs. I was watching the game with him, and I was making my way back upstairs to get my stuff to head to the press conference, and I see the goal go in. Harry Sawyer's basically celebrating, I can see the entire thing, and I'm just like, what are you doing, Sawyer? What are you doing? And went upstairs to get my stuff, and talking to a couple of people in the press box, and I'm just like, did Sawyer really just pull the stripper moves out on the corner flag? It's like, I think one of them said, we're calling it the Samba. Which I'm like, okay, you know what? That's probably a politer way to put it. I got no idea what he was doing. I don't know why he chose that particular celebration.
He probably just ran out of ideas and panicked and was like, I'll just do this. It's like on FIFA, you spam a bunch of buttons to see what it does.
You don't know what comes up next. Look, I mean, to be fair, and Mile Stojovski said post-game when I asked him about it in the press conference, it's just like, I mean, as long as he's scoring, he can do whatever celebrations he wants, right? Like,
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
I
that
mean-
approach too. I love that approach
Yeah.
because it's been. I remember it being a talking point with Adelaide teams in the past of, players celebrating, it too hard in and it wasn't the desired result and stuff. But I kind of like it. If they score, who cares? That's their job. They've done it. Congratulations. Let them have that kind of moment to celebrate. And the fact that Sawyer's celebrations as well, you never know what you're going to get, and it's usually going to be quite entertaining. I think that just adds to it. And it's great to have those characters in the league as well. You can tell as well, I think, with his work rate, that he has been just waiting for this opportunity to play at the A-League level. And now that he's got it, he's grabbing it with both hands, and he's, I think, been one of the best number 9s in the league this season. So it's been tremendous for MacArthur to have him in that kind of form, and tremendous for him to kind of be making a name for himself now as that entertaining, celebrating figure.
I can't wait to see what he pulls out next. To be honest, because it
the kind of craziness
on Saturday night. Yeah,
that's right. From a City perspective, though, obviously disappointing loss. I do think the positives were there in that the 2 goals they took were actually really well crafted. Great to see Mehdi Mehmeti back on the score sheet as well. But it's just, it felt like they were coming into this. They've made 3 or 4 signings this transfer window, with Socceroos hopefuls coming to the club in an attempt to try and put their name in the hat for the World Cup. I don't know if we saw. I can't remember, so correct me if I'm wrong. Did we see Arzani playing for them in this one?
No, so from memory, I'm trying to think back to the press conference. I think Arzani's still a little bit away. I think one of their other ones is still a little bit away as well, I want to say. Whoever the fourth signing was, because obviously Eunice played, Teague played. So whoever the other signing was, I think still a little bit away. A lot of it's just down to fitness. Is sort of where it is. A little bit of it is fitness. A little bit of it is just I think Arzani said maybe a slight knee issue. Basically had his knee cleaned out, I think was the phrase Vidmar
used. That's a weird thought, a weird image to picture somebody cleaning out a knee. That's
So yeah, I believe that was the phrase that was used off the top of my head. But yeah, it's so we're still probably a couple of weeks away from Melbourne City being at quote unquote full strength. Doesn't get easier for them. They've got a couple of tough away trips coming up, including away to Ulsan. So they'll want as close to a full strength squad as they can get. But with all the signings they've made, unfortunately they lose such a key part of their squad in Kai Truan, who's off to New York City.
Yeah, and that's a massive one. You say it doesn't get much easier for them. That's going to be a big blow as well. I did see some confidence.
It was Harrison Delbridge.
Harrison Delbridge, that's right, yes. Delbridge, yes. Jeez, they've made some great signings. And it does feel like...
And 3 of them are on loan.
3 of them on loan, but it does feel like a full-strength City squad should be really, really strong. And you can kind of understand, I saw a lot of discussion on social media heading into this game about, with a full-strength squad, how good City's defensive depth in particular is. Kai Truan leaving kind of hurts a little bit, but not too much now that they've signed Harrison Delbridge. But yeah, Kai Truan leaving is such a shame. I love watching him play, to be honest. I don't tend to, look, he can be used as a 6, he can be used as a centre-back. I much prefer him at centre-back than I do at 6, and I've made those thoughts known on this podcast before. But Vidmar obviously has used him pretty extensively in the 6.
So, I don't know how much of Vidmar's press conference you caught, but I was along that same line of thinking when, when I brought up, Kai Truan leaving, I went, what do you maybe do in the meantime while you're waiting for some of these players, to come back into the squad, with the loss of Truan, like Delbridge and Vidmar just went, well, they play different positions to start with, and I'm just like, do they though? Like, they're both centre backs. Like, yeah. I know you like to use Truan as a 6, but like really, like you're telling me that you like. So yeah, I thought that was a little bit of a weird one. So it's nice to know we're on the same line of thinking here.
I definitely think that he's a quality player, kind of regardless of where he plays. But I definitely prefer him as a centre of defence. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes for him. Crazy to make that move as well in the January transfer window. He's getting guaranteed minutes at City. World Cup's just around the corner. He's one of those players that's been in and out of Popovic's squads for the Socceroos. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because we've seen in the past Australian players going to the MLS and not getting minutes straight away. So it could really hurt his chances if he doesn't get that opportunity. We're going to move on to another. Basically, all these games were crazy, but this was another crazy game this weekend between Brisbane and Adelaide. And it felt like for a while there, Poletti, it was same old Adelaide. And I think in the end it kind of turned out to be, with a last-minute goal and a hat-trick in just his second game for Brodie Burkett. Perfect hat-trick as well, which I've seen a lot of comments about. Right foot, left foot, and the head. Really well taken goals, all of them. He looked very good against the Victory when he came on for a little cameo towards the end. And he looked better than good. He looked amazing against the Raw. I live here in Adelaide. I still don't even know what on earth is going on and why. Why are there so many just talented young footballers coming out of here? But I think it's, credit to Adelaide United that they're able to identify these talents and create those pathways to bring them up and then have them performing for the senior team and step up when they need to. It was an incredible performance from him, maybe papered over some of the cracks and the concerns in Adelaide's performances in recent weeks, but it's still just such a tremendous performance from yet another young Adelaide player.
I don't have an answer for you. I wish I had an answer for you, and the only thing I came up with is it because there's nothing else to do in the city of Adelaide?
Oh, rough. That's rough.
To be fair, I genuinely have no idea why Adelaide has this production factory of footballers. Is there something in the wineries where there's literally just a factory that produces footballers hidden away in the wineries that no one knows about, which is where they're all coming from?
I definitely didn't come from there, though, so, I don't know.
Yeah, we know you came from England.
Yes. But no, it's crazy as well. The other thing about Burkett is he didn't, kind of go along the usual pathway that we see a lot of these young Adelaide United players traverse, which is they play their youth football and then they're signed to the Football South Australia NTC, and then from there there's a direct pathway to the Adelaide United youth team, and then from the Adelaide United youth team to the senior team. Brodie Burkett was playing.
The NTC run the youth team for Adelaide, yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, there's some operational kind of collaboration there, and Brodie Burkett wasn't that case at all. He was playing for Berkela in MPLSA only a couple of seasons ago, and then was identified by Adelaide United and signed directly to their youth team. So he bypassed the whole Football SA pipeline in the first place. And I think it just goes to show how much talent there is out there, that there's talent coming from outside of Adelaide United within Adelaide that is able to perform at this level. But for Brisbane, this is a absolutely heartbreaking result. It felt like they had it for, most of that game. They were the better team. They were playing better football. They scored two absolutely tremendous goals. I was talking about how good some of the Jets goals were. I think the two in this Brisbane game rival that as well. Sam Klein's first half strike. He just, and this is what I like about some footballers, when they just take a shot. They just go, you know what? Let's see what happens. I back myself. I'm in space. I'm going to take a shot. And it just goes into the court. It was a really well taken shot by Klein, and then it was long for the second goal, which was a good piece of movement to find the space off of Kikianis and put the ball in the corner. But it felt like they should have had a lot better than they did in this one, and it's kind of representing now a little bit of a slide for them. Okay, yeah, they got the job done against Perth in a tough fixture, but losses to Auckland and Melbourne City recently as well. They're just not quite the same team that they were perhaps in that first half of the season, Poletti.
I mean, we're talking about it with the Jets earlier. It could just be as simple as a lull, right? I think that could just genuinely be all it is, because they've still played some good football in these stretches. They just haven't been the best team on the day, and sometimes that happens in football. You can be the better team, and you can lose. You can give up one single goal, and suddenly you're on the losing end, and the opposition's walking away with 3 points. I think that's all it is for Brisbane. I think they're just in a slight lull. They they need to get themselves out of it. I think they will. I don't see any, too much in the way of long-term issues there for Brisbane. Come back to me in a couple of weeks if they lose their next few games, and maybe I'll be singing a different tune. But for now, I think it's just a slight lull. I think they'll get out of it. You're going to remember, obviously, before the Perth game, Valkanis left.
Yeah.
To go be with his mum who sadly passed. I don't know they won that game, but I mean maybe that's been weighing on his mind for a couple of weeks. Maybe that's part of what could have led to distractions in terms of the game planning and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it did. I'm not saying it didn't. But I mean it's just one of the things that could have had an impact.
Yeah.
So maybe, let's say, it's just a slight lull. They'll get the next couple of results, and suddenly, we're talking about Brisbane Roar as, are they one of the, 20 teams in a 12-team league that could contend for the grand final?
Yeah, they're back up the top. It would be good to see them back up there. It's been fun to watch them this season for sure. And, when they've been playing that great football, getting those results, getting good crowds, they've been awesome to watch, and it's good for the league. So, yeah, fingers crossed they can get back there. I'm going to move on to the Wanderers and Perth next, which coming into this one was an interesting prospect for Perth. Obviously, they kind of been building quite well over this season. I think I don't think anybody's seeing them as genuine title contenders, but they're putting together a solid season for themselves, and it felt like against a weakened Western Sydney Wanderers, this was an opportunity to again, have a good performance, get 3 points away from home, really keep building on that season. But from the Wanderers' perspective, obviously the new manager bounce, Gary Van Egmond comes in, and it was their big new signing, Ryan Fraser-Poletti, who made the difference in the 92nd minute, two minutes into added time, with a kind of speculative effort from the edge of the box, and it takes a big deflection up over the keeper, counts to Fraser, and there was absolute pandemonium inside the stadium, fans on the pitch, players going crazy and stuff, which you love to see. But yep, just another case of the new manager bounce, perhaps. 3 points in the bag for the Wanderers, 3 much needed points in the bag for them, and a goal on debut for their big new signing.
Yeah, you maybe could have asked for a better performance than that all up, but I think that's the one game of the round that probably didn't deliver from an entertainment standpoint for the vast majority of it, and that's what happens when games kick off in 36-degree weather. But enough about that. Look, Ryan Fraser, perfect performance off the bench. You couldn't have asked for much more. Van Egmond said post-game he's been training for a few weeks. They needed to wait, contract signing, get the international transfer clearance before he was allowed to play. Came quite late, so it was they made the decision of starting off the bench, and it ended up being the right one in the end. But there were a couple of notable absences here. Alu Kuol and Hiroshi Ibusuki, the other signing that they've made in recent weeks, and Gary Van Egmond was asked about that in the post-game press conference and said that basically no one's guaranteed their spot, and everyone's going to have to work for it. The starting 11 might not be the same as the finishing 11. Where have I heard that one before? Oh, sorry, just a little bit of a throat tickle there. But everyone's going to have to work for their spot, which it's a fair enough attitude to have. But yeah, I think, you sign Ibusuki, or the club signs Ibusuki for 18 months, and new manager comes in, and we talked very much about Ibusuki being a very specific type of striker. Doesn't work in every single game plan, and you can't help but wonder if the Wanderers have just shot themselves in the foot with this signing, if he's not going to be the sort of striker that Van Egmond wants.
I do think Van Egmond handled the question quite well, though, because he did suggest that there is that opportunity now for them to have a bit of versatility, right?
Well, he said everyone's got the opportunity, right? Everyone's got an opportunity to impress.
100%, but he also mentioned that, depending on the game, it might call for somebody different, right? A different profile of player up front that we can do different things with that we think might work. So, he could have just said, well, I didn't sign him, but we'll see, right? He'll be given the opportunity versus, yeah, okay, everyone's going to have the opportunity. And also we can see the benefit to having a bunch of different profiles up front that can work, from Borello to Lual was the other player he mentioned, Ibasuki, now Ryan Fraser. Like, we've got tons of options now that are going to give us some versatility moving forward. So, wasn't the most flattering result for the Wanderers. I thought that actually they didn't look very good for most of that game. But at the end of the day, all that matters for them and their fans is those 3 points, which is something they've been begging for all season. So, I think their fans at this point will be taking some kind of just workmanlike performances and getting 3 points over playing some nice football and maybe not getting those results at the end of the day. Speaking of not getting results at the end of the day, Auckland, we said before, dropped points again.
Does anyone want to win?
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw out a very niche reference here, but it's very reminiscent of the 2007 college football season, where there was...
I'm looking forward to where this is going.
The curse, it was called the curse of the number 2, where the number 2 ranked team that season lost 7 times in 9 weeks in their matchups. They were supposed to be the favourites in these fixtures and ended up losing, and we're kind of seeing that, I suppose, with the top 2 in the A-League this season in Sydney and Auckland dropping points rather consistently over the last couple of weeks. And this one was extremely disappointing, I think, Poletti, because, that final Oliver VAR goal for the Mariners in the 89th minute, he gets a brace, which is great for the Mariners, and a point away from home against Auckland's great for the Mariners, but it was sloppy defending, really poorly defended corner, couldn't get the ball out, messy goalkeeping, just, I think, kind of endemic with how some of these results have gone for Auckland, where it's just been kind of sloppy, and that's not what we've come to expect from this team. We expect it to be pretty disciplined, for them to, maybe not score a ton of goals, but to defend extremely well, and that didn't necessarily happen here for them.
No, it didn't. Look, Piney was talking about it on commentary, that the goal was sort of building for like a 10-minute period, in the lead up to it, and it just so happened that it ended up happening. Look, I think it just goes back to the point, any result is legitimately possible in this league. On any given day, anyone can win, anyone can lose. Any 2 teams can draw against any other 2 teams. It's part of what makes this league so great, but it's also part of what makes this league so frustrating to watch sometimes. Is, look, I'm not necessarily saying, I like having different teams win it every year. I think it does tend to get boring when the same team wins the title year after year after year, and that the only thing that matters for these teams, in certain parts of the world, is literally their continental games and how well they go in that competition, because they're gonna dog walk. Yeah, they're going to dog walk their league, right? That can be very boring to watch. That being said, I also just want to see a team just take the competition by the scruff of the neck, right? I'm not necessarily saying we need to go back to, Sydney FC 2016-17, where they only lose 1 game all season. But I think there's got to be some sort of happy medium between everyone can beat everyone and... There's two or three teams are, competing to be the best team in the league, right? And it feels like we're too, closer to the bottom part of that list than we are to, the top end of that list, where it's like, okay, the title might be decided with 3 weeks to go because there's a 6-point lead going into, the third to final round of the season. But, it's still up for grabs, right? Like, I want to see 2 or 3 teams competing until the final
like we had
day
last
of the season,
right? Where exactly. Auckland were arguably the best team in the league last season, but there were a couple of challenges along the way. City, Adelaide, Western United, all kind of mounted challenges
that's
for
sort
them.
Of what
and
you
it
want to
made
say
it entertaining, right? Because we had these big top-of-the-table clashes, and it felt like there was a lot at stake. Whereas this season, I think you're right. Auckland have only a 1-point lead at the top of the table. It's great for everybody else. But in terms of looking at it from a case of what does this mean about it? Does this mean the floor has been raised in the league? Does it mean the ceiling's come down? I know that obviously Lockie, from his perspective of looking at Asian Champions League football, is like, well, this isn't good, right? Because we want our best teams to be playing good football and winning comprehensively.
Best teams, right?
So when they make it to Asia, they're able to put up a performance. Like it's there's kind of a lot of angles to look at it from.
One angle I will say that we didn't quite necessarily touch on is it means that every fan base in the league can be invested every single week. So I think that's the flip side of it is every team can go into every single game and go, well, we got a chance here. We have a chance of taking 3 points, and then
you can kind of ignore what happened last week.
Exactly,
because, the opposite could happen this week. So
and then you're so close, like with how tight the table is. You suddenly, I'll pull the table up in front of me to give an actual example here, right? If we look at the Mariners, right? Okay, so there's the bottom of the table, 13 points. They get the draw against Auckland. If they win next week, suddenly they're into ninth. Maybe they're into 10th, right? And then you're only a few points out of the 62 good results outside of the top 6. And, for everything that fan base has gone through in, just this year alone, and I know they've had the travel and everything like that, but then the team got gutted and we know how that story's played out already. But, if they can go into the final 5 rounds of the season and be a legitimate chance of making finals, maybe the crowds come back. Maybe that makes for an enticing sell to an owner. Where it's like, well, if we get everything right, there's a fan base here that's going to turn up, and so that's the advantage of it, which is a good thing. To be fair, I think you can say that for every fan base because we know Australian fans love to turn up when the team is winning and they don't when they're losing. Which again just goes back to the point of anyone being able to beat anyone should conceivably raise the floor on what the crowd numbers should be.
Yeah, and the other thing as well to keep in mind and contextualize this within is all of those teams have played a differing number of games. Some have played 15, some have played 14. Sydney have only played 13 games, so it will the gaps will start to appear as the games played even out. But it's still 5 points separating first from 8th is an insane stat. This far, 14, 15 games into a season, that's very, very tight. And I think that there's negatives to that, but I think that the main thing is that every fan base can really feel invested this season because there's something to play for, and it just takes a run of form like the Jets are on right now, right, to all of a sudden be right at the top and people going, they're the ones that are going to win the title. So it's fascinating from that perspective, absolutely, but definitely disappointing from an Auckland perspective to continue dropping points. Outside of the A-League now, just to finish this episode off, I'm not sure how many of our listeners will have heard about this news, but I think it was last week, Poletti, correct me if I'm wrong, that there were some issues with some fans being allowed into the ground at A-League games, and the high-profile incident involved a brother and sister attending a Sydney FC game. The brother was wearing a Portugal national team shirt and the sister was wearing a shirt of Chilean club FC Palestino, which was founded by Palestinian immigrants in Chile. It features the Palestinian flag on the kit, and she was denied entry from the venue and her brother was not. Now, this kind of went under the radar last week. Not a lot of people were really talking too much about it, but the Football Supporters Association of Australia reached out to the APL for comment and clarification, not just on this specific incident, but there have been a number of incidents over the years of different national flags and symbols either being permitted or not being permitted in venues.
It used to be FA policy, right? No national flags, right? Which is why you had like teams just weren't allowed to use their, the colours of the their national identity, right? Like it's, sorry, I'm kind of.
But they wrote to the APL and they sought advice on what was permitted and what were prohibited symbols to ensure that fans can attend matches without fear of being turned away or subjected to unnecessary scrutiny. And the APL responded saying that there's no blanket ban against national flags or jerseys at venues, but that entry conditions remain subjective, essentially saying it's up to venue security, their rules, their decision, and their decision-making protocols. Which, to be honest, Poletti, is a little bit disappointing because, as we've seen over the years, some of those decisions can be contradictory, right? One week something is fine, the next week it's not, and it's not just down to national flags and symbols.
Case in point, right, is just on this, right? So the fan who was removed from the Wanderers game the night before, the Sydney FC game, I spoke to someone who was at the venue. The fan who was kicked out has been wearing the same shirt to Wanderers games for 3 years. So why has it not been a problem for the last 3 years, but suddenly it's a problem now?
Exactly. And things like, some teams not being allowed to take, drums or megaphones into grounds when that's been just commonplace for so many years. It's these kinds of inconsistencies that are a problem. And that's something that the FSAA have said is kind of in their mission statement of finding consistency and representing football fans' best interests on those issues. So the fact that somebody's out there trying to reach out and figure out what's going on and why these decisions are being made is a great thing, but perhaps a little bit of a disappointing response from the APL, but also understandable, right? It's not theirs to enforce, right? It is the stadiums do enforce these rules, and I think that's where there's that disconnect, right? And that discourse needs to open up, where there needs to be conversation between the decision-making member bodies of Football Australia, the APL, the venue security, the police force, and also the clubs and supporters. And that's kind of where we're still lacking a lot of, discussion and decision-making processes.
Absolutely. And I think that's a genuine part of the problem, is the fact that no one owns their own stadium. We're at the mercy of whatever security company the stadium owners want to employ. And as we've seen in the past, you mentioned the inconsistencies on a week-to-week basis. Sometimes it's just a security guard just going, that's not happening today, get out, right? Like that's literally all it is, right? Is because you got to remember a lot of these security guards as well, they're subcontractors, right? They're brought in for events that they work for 3 different companies in the same week. They'll come in and, and that can kind of be what it is. And so ultimately, and I know this keeps getting mentioned as a pipe dream, right? But until A-League teams own their own stadiums and they can be directly responsible for the security that they hire, and you might have to, still work with the police and stuff like that in terms of, minimum standards and everything that gets met. But like until, you can, be directly responsible for certain directives for security guards that you, as a stadium operator, directly hire, these things just might keep on happening. And, without... So I did have a train of thought that I sort of...
You just lost.
That I just lost, yeah. Like, I think that's legitimately all it's going to come down to, is that we're just, unfortunately, at the mercy of whatever security guards want to do on any given day, whether, it's founded in fact or whether it's, Secco earning $45 an hour wanting to go on a power trip.
Sure, it's a problem that will continue to happen, but that's where, again, we've spoken about the Football Supporters Association of Australia in the past and the work that they do. Go and support them if you do really care and are passionate about fans having a voice in some of these decisions, because it's really one of the few avenues that we have as football supporters to kind of have our voices heard. And that will do for this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. Another crazy week of football. Who knows what the table's going to look like in a week's time. I'm sure all these talking points we've had, Poletti, about which team's on the up and which team's on the down is just going to be flipped again, in 7 days when we record the next episode going over the weekend's games. But it's always great to see what comes out of the A-League, whether it's great goals, VAR controversy, young players lighting it up. You never know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis, and it's always good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of what makes the league so exciting, is you just don't know what's going to happen. It's a perfect reason to tune in every week. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you love the league, because you wouldn't be listening to it otherwise. But I want to say just quickly, there was a discussion that went around on Twitter over the weekend. There's plenty of content there for you to seek out. It doesn't have to be us. The A-Leagues do a great job of putting together a bunch of magazine shows as well that are available on YouTube. There's plenty of other, independent media or fan-led podcasts. Take it all in. We're all doing this, particularly for the fan-led and independent media. There's not a lot of money in it. We're doing it for the love of the game. We love doing it. We love bringing these discussion points to you. We hope you love listening to them as much as everyone else does. And the only way that these sorts of things get to continue is by people consuming them, right? So take them in, share them, tell your friends, help everyone grow, because a rising tide is going to lift all boats. And the more people we can get consuming the ancillary content around the league, whether it's from the league itself or from people like us, it's only going to help grow the leagues, the men and the women, to a better place, right?
Yeah, very well said. Nice way to round out the episode. We'll be back later on in the week, Thursday or Friday. I don't know, we'll figure it out at some point. And I believe we've got a special guest who's involved in a lot of that stuff as well, that's lined up to be involved with that one. So stay tuned for that. It should be a great conversation. And we'll see you guys all later in the week as well. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.